joined now from Utah by Brianne Dressen. Brianne was a participant in the Astra Zeneca COVID vaccine trial, something that's left her disabled. Brianne is the co-founder of React 19, an organisation that helps the vaccine injured. She's also suing AstraZeneca in a suit that will hopefully pave the way for others to get their day in court also. Brianne, welcome to the show. Now, I understand with the lawsuit in play, obviously there's certain things we can't speak about, but I'll try my best to sort of skirt around them. Can we start at the beginning? What made you sign up for the trial, and what was that trial experience like?
Well, at the beginning, I wanted to be part of the solution to get us all out of the pandemic. And so for me, it wasn't a matter of if I was going to get the COVID vaccine, it was a matter of when. And so I really did feel privileged to be able to participate in a clinical trial, to be part of the science and to be, part of a solution for everybody. So it just kind of was second nature for me to step up and do it. So on November 4th, 2020, I got my one and only shot of AstraZeneca, and my reaction started within an hour. So it was really quick.
Wow. In terms of the trial itself, I mean, how did that work? You applied to do it, they gave you a time and a place and you turned up, or was there more to it than that?
Yeah, so I had two friends that were healthcare professionals participate in the Moderna clinical trial, and they did just fine. But I didn't qualify for the Moderna trial. So because I wasn't a healthcare professional as a preschool teacher, so I was a different level of high risk. And as you can imagine, preschool kids and masks that were being mandated at the time, those two didn't get along. So I qualified for the AstraZeneca trial. So basically what they did is they had us call, you had to approach them and register, and then they would call you and sit on the phone with you for at least an hour, 2 hours sometimes, going through your entire health history. So they knew everything that I had ever experienced from the moment I was born up until I got the shot. They wanted to know everything. So it was a very thorough intake. And then the contract that they had us sign was very thorough as well. And in the contract, they reassured me that if there were anything to go wrong, that they would help medically and financially, which they have done neither. So
that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. You say you knew within an hour that something wasn't right. What were the symptoms you had?
It started with pins and needles down the same arm as my injection. And it was, I was sitting upright like I am now. So there was no reason for me to have that strange feeling as if circulation had been cut off for a very long time from my limb. And then as time progressed, it progressed through my body to my other arm, down to my legs. And now I feel it from head to toe throughout my body all the time, 24/7. It's the last thing I feel when I go to sleep at night, and it's the first thing that greets me every morning. And that's just one of about two dozen symptoms that I still deal with on the daily.
My goodness. What do they say in terms of why these symptoms have come on, what's caused it, and is there any way to treat it at all?
Well, I'm 3.5 years into this nightmare now. And of course, with that comes a lot of doctors, over 100 doctors I've seen so far. And unfortunately, the medical professionals, at first, they had no idea what it was. And so the natural reaction was, oh, it's anxiety. So I was diagnosed with anxiety because my legs weren't working and I was incontinent. But then it progressed when I reported my injury to the National Institutes of Health, which is the lead research institution in the United States. And they flew me out and they did a whole bunch of testing and diagnostic workup. And they also treated me with therapies because they diagnosed me with post-vaccine neuropathy. So from there, a whole bunch of other scientists and doctors got involved and essentially have confirmed that my immune system continues to attack my nervous system. And so what's happening is basically my immune system sees my nerves. There's a cell in your nervous system that looks really, really close under a microscope to the spike protein. And so my immune system essentially from the vaccine was trained to attack this thing that looks like the spike protein, but is actually a part of your nervous system. So my immune system just keeps going after those. So it's not something anybody wants.
No. Are they hopeful that actually, you know, going forward there are, you know, because you can't be the only one. In fact, I know you're not the only one. Are they hopeful that actually that there's some way to treat this going forward, and actually this, you know, this nightmare is going to end? Because I honestly can't imagine 24 hours a day feeling like that. It must be. I mean, it must be really difficult to sleep as well.
Oh yeah, sleep is impossible. I have a huge cocktail of things that I take now to be able to sleep. And just, you know, as a precursor, I was on no drugs. I was on a thyroid medication every day. I was a drug-free, very health-conscious person before this. And now I'm on a litany of medications just to make it so I can function cognitively and physically. But yeah, the sensations are a nightmare. There's a lot of people that have ended their lives because of it. I too have, you know, considered it, and it's not something that I take lightly, but it's something that people need to understand just how uncomfortable this is. I mean, so if you can imagine sitting down at night after a long, busy day and you're unwinding with a book or, you know, or some music or even just some breathing exercises, if you can imagine your body not being able to rest and digest at all, that's how these people that are dealing with this syndrome are now sentenced for the rest of their days to endure. The doctors that I am working with now, yeah, it's not the greatest. But the doctors that I am working with now, they're doing everything they can to find relief for us. And some people are finding a measure of relief, and some people aren't. So there are people in my situation that are still trapped in their beds dealing with this because their symptoms are a 10 out of 10. I've been able to get things down to probably a 6 or a 7 out of 10. So to say there's a lot of work that needs to be done is an understatement. The research community is afraid to research COVID vaccine injuries. It's near impossible to get any research published. Mayo's tried, Johns Hopkins tried, Stanford has tried, and it's just such a taboo topic and for the research journals that they just don't want to touch it. So without research, we really can't get the real momentum going for people to really, you know, put their heads together to look into this. So,
absolutely. And
of course, so yeah, it's been frustrating.
I mean, the fact that it's happened in the first place is bad enough, but to not own it, do you know what I mean? To not own it and go, okay, this is bad. We're going to do everything we can to try and, you know, reverse it, even if we get it down to a 2 or a 3, you know, to do something, you know, it's unforgivable to me. Obviously, in America, your medical system is very different to what we have here in the UK. We have the NHS for now. I mean, it's being sold off bit by bit, but we still have it. But you obviously don't have that. So you're on this cocktail of medication, as you've said. How are you able to fund that? That must be a real strain on you and your family financially as well.
Yeah. So within the first couple of months, we realized that the drug company was not going to be owning up to their obligations. And the financial strain was so bad that we had to refinance our house. My physical condition was so bad that my sister came in and she hired a nanny for us. And we borrowed money from family. And we let the drug company know all of this, right, very quickly. And so it was very obvious, you know, to them. We were very clear in communicating with them what our needs were and what needs they were not meeting. And, you know, for my husband, obviously, this was a substantial strain to somehow hold down a job, keep his wife alive, keep his 2 kids alive as well. And somehow we all survived, but it was literally the worst experience of my life and my family's life. But so, for example, I have one medication. And it's a substantial benefit for me because it actually calms down the immune system. But it costs anywhere from $180,000 to $443,000 per year. And that's just one medication that I'm on for life, by the way.
That's monopoly money figures. That's crazy.
Yes.
My goodness me. Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask you why you co-founded React 19, obviously to help victims of vaccine injuries like yourself. But is that the answer? Is it the case of, you know, you've got these people around you, thankfully, your husband, your sister, but obviously there's going to be other people, aren't there, that don't have those people, that maybe someone lives alone. Who's going to help them?
Yeah, that's been the most disheartening thing about all of this. I mean, because I'm not alone in my physical condition. I'm very lucky for having my supportive family that rallies around me. But really, they also are the reason why I can advocate and do the things that I do for others through React 19. But React 19 really was born through necessity, because we were all game players, right? Like, I participated in the clinical trial. I went to the National Institutes of Health to participate in the trial there after my injury. I wanted nothing more than to be part of the solution through this process. But unfortunately, the government have failed us. The drug companies have failed us. And so we had no choice but to pick up the baton and carry on to find those solutions on our own. So React 19 has 3 missions. One is to provide financial support, emotional support, and physical support for people that are suffering severe adverse events. And just like in the UK, the compensation scheme here in the United States is abysmal. The drug companies have been provided profound protections through several vaccine laws. And there's an additional law called the PrEP Act on top of the vaccine laws here in the United States that protects people extra in a sake of emergency. So in the state of an emergency, the drug companies are protected. The health officials are protected that mandate the shots. The health agencies are protected. The person that gives you the shot is protected. And the doctor that sees you after your injury is protected. So there is no avenue for proper consumer protections, which really, there's a lot of people like, well, suing is ridiculous. But the reality is that cars historically have not become more dangerous. And the reason being is because if there's a defect in the car, people can sue the manufacturer. And so then the manufacturer doesn't want to be hit with these substantial lawsuits and these financial losses. So they make sure that their products are safer. When you look at the vaccines historically, obviously the COVID vaccines have a far different safety scale than any other vaccine. But then when you look a little bit back to HPV vaccines, they also have a pretty questionable safety profile when compared to the others. So my own theory and my own assumption and conclusion after living this and working with other advocates that have been in this space for years is consumer protections are what will drive safer products. And without allowing the vaccines to be, held to a certain standard through the court system, these vaccines are going to continue to get less and less safe.
Yeah, but that to me makes complete sense. If you were taking away basically the repercussions for not getting something right, then you're going to be less inclined to attempt to get something right. I think, especially when you're in an industry that is just ruled by profit. I could spend another 6 months doing it, but think of that 6 months worth of profit and think of those shareholders and how unhappy they're going to be. That's obvious to me that would be the case, and I agree completely. I think you need a system where they can be held to account for that. Now, you're suing AstraZeneca. Obviously, I know there's certain things you can't talk about, but can you outline the lawsuit you're bringing? Because yours is slightly different, isn't it, in the sense that you were part of a trial. So I know that there's plenty of lawsuits around. There's a few in the United Kingdom as well where, someone was, told they were going to get sacked if they didn't take the vaccine. So they took the vaccine to keep their job. They were injured by the vaccine, and therefore it's a different kind of avenue they're coming in from you. So how does yours work?
So I'm able to go after them because I have a contract with them directly. Essentially, they committed, very clearly to do certain things. And in the contract, I also committed to do certain things. I was a rule follower to a T. So I definitely owned up to my part of the bargain, my end of the bargain. But obviously they did not. I was offered, after 12 months, by the way, so 12 long nightmarish months of this, I was offered a settlement letter of $1,200. And for me to accept that, I would have needed to absolve them of any wrongdoing, any and all future obligations. So obviously my life to AstraZeneca is worth $1,200. And for me, obviously, that was a big slap in the face, and I was not going to accept that. So we continued to try everything we could to work with them outside of the court system. But it's been 3 years, and there's statutes of limitations on these things. And they left me no other choice.
$1,200 to an organisation like Astra Zeneca would be a round of drinks at the Christmas party, if we're brutally honest. And there you are, just one of your medications, as you say, is anywhere between $100,000 and $400,000 a year, and they want to give you $1,200. That's more of an insult to, in my mind, that's more of an insult than offering nothing, actually, in a way.
I agree.
It's disgusting. So just finally, Brianne, how can people support you? People that are watching this, that are listening to your story, that actually, want to help you, whether it be with the court case, whether it be with React 19 or any of the work that you're doing.
Well, thanks for asking. It's the work that we're doing it's near and dear to my heart, but also because we're on a literal life-saving mission. So, for example, because the government's failing us and the medical community is failing us, we've literally had to establish a underground network of providers that we send patients to that are in substantial need. But we also have a program called the Care Fund, and that's because the medical expenses in the United States are substantial. And we've been able to raise and distribute over $850,000 US dollars to people that are in need. And these grants are anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. And we literally have been able to get people out of wheelchairs, kids out of sick beds. A really good example of these programs in action is there was an 8-year-old girl that was vaccinated, ended up with a severe form of neuropathy similar to my own, as well as PANS, which is a really bad cognitive inflammation of the brain. And Johns Hopkins committed her. They put her in a psych ward. They didn't help her. They didn't do anything she was just crying all the time. So they just committed her. She was trapped there for 3 weeks. And then her mom found us, and we were able to help her mom break her out of Johns Hopkins, get her home, and then get them to a totally different state through our underground network of providers and get her the necessary medication that she needed. And then last fall, she was able to walk into school as if nothing had happened to her. And so that's just one example of the impact that people's donations can have when they contribute to our organization. And 100% of people's donations go into the Care Fund. So we don't have overhead. We don't pull income doing this, although, my own personal substantial needs are pretty bad. But still, I know the impact of every single dollar. So we make sure that we get the money into the hands of those people that need it. So it's essentially just like a big crowdfund service.
But it's incredible, and it's so important. And I hear people occasionally, particularly on social media, and I know social media isn't real life, but, I was still talking about COVID, still talking about vaccines. It's like, hell yeah. Yeah, because people are still suffering. And also, to do what they've done to an 8-year-old kid, I mean, that's beyond the pale, and that should never be allowed to happen again. And I think the only way that can be the case is that the more we speak about it and you do the work that you're doing and get it out there and show people that actually, people are still really suffering and they need a voice. Absolutely. So thank you so much for coming on. But more importantly, thank you so much for the work that you're doing for other people, even though you're obviously in this situation yourself. It's hella selfless. It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.